I just got back from visiting Aptera and I have a lot on my mind right now. There is something about seeing this operation in person that changes everything for you. Words and videos only tell part of the story, but being there tells you the rest completely. So let me just sit down and share exactly what I saw, what I felt, and what I think. These are my personal thoughts only, and I do not speak for Aptera at all. I have no special insider information beyond what my own eyes and gut told me there. Alright, let's start with the assembly line because that is where everything begins for them. The first thing you need to understand is this assembly line is built for 10 vehicles only. These are the validation vehicles, and Aptera has ordered every single part needed to build them. Some people online were saying the warehouse looked empty and jumped to all kinds of conclusions. But here is the truth: they bought exactly enough parts to build exactly 10 vehicles. That is it. That is all they need right now, and they have all of it. Every part has been ordered, received, and is sitting there ready to go into these vehicles. This is not speculation or hope this is happening, and it is 100% confirmed. Those 10 vehicles are going to be built, and the validation process is going to begin soon. After that comes crash testing, safety evaluations, and all the regulatory work that has to happen. Now, one thing became very clear to me while walking through that facility and talking to people. Aptera is resource limited right now, and by resource I mean one very specific thing: money. They simply do not have the cash to hire as many people as this job truly requires. If a large established automaker were doing this, you would probably see several hundred people on site. But hiring several hundred people costs an enormous amount of money that Aptera just does not have. So instead, what you have is a small team doing the work of a much larger one. And honestly, watching these engineers work was one of the most impressive things I witnessed while there. Every single engineer I talked to seemed sharp, deeply knowledgeable, and completely locked in on the mission. These are not people just clocking in and clocking out at the end of their shift. They are doing the work of 2, 3, sometimes even 4 people every single day, without complaint. And the energy in that building was something I did not expect to feel as strongly as I did. There was no panic, no chaos, no sense of doom hanging over anyone working in that space. What I felt instead was focus, excitement, and a genuine belief that this thing is going to work. The engineers believe in what they are building, and that belief is visible in everything they do. You can see it in how they move, how they talk, how they approach every single problem carefully. They sat down together, mapped out the assembly sequence, and figured out the most logical build order. Which part goes in first? Which goes second? What is the most efficient way to flow this? That kind of thinking takes time up front, but saves enormous amounts of time and headache later on. And they are moving deliberately through the process, not rushing, which is exactly the right approach here. When I was there, the team was deep in the process of checking the wiring harness carefully. And I mean checking every single pin of that wiring harness one by one without skipping anything. That is an incredibly time-consuming process, but it is also an absolutely necessary one at this stage. When you are in mass production, you trust that the wiring harness works, and you move on. But during validation, you check everything, because you need to know that every single connection is correct. They are also pressure testing components, verifying torque specs, and checking the fitment of every individual part. So the first vehicle naturally takes the longest because you are learning and documenting everything as you go. The second one will go faster, the third faster still, and by 10 it flows much smoother. That learning curve is real, and it is a normal part of any first-of-kind manufacturing process anywhere. When they eventually move to the low-volume production line, things will look a little different again. The AGVs will need to be programmed, some steps may be tweaked, and suppliers will be different. Parts for low-volume production will come from different suppliers and may need small adjustments to fit. But the foundation they are building right now with these 10 vehicles is incredibly important groundwork. And knowing that they have all the parts and are actively building gives me a lot of confidence. Now let me tell you about someone I got to meet for the very first time during my visit. His name is Tim Dine, and talking to him was honestly one of the highlights of my trip. I had heard his name many times before, but I had never actually met him until now. And after spending time with him in person, I completely understand why his name carries so much weight. Let me walk you through his background, because it tells you a lot about who this man is. He was with Aptera back in the very first iteration of the company, way back around 2007. He was involved in building their early prototypes during that first attempt at making this vehicle real. Then, he moved on and joined Tesla during a period when Tesla was still growing and proving itself. He spent almost 6 years there, working through the kind of challenges that come with serious manufacturing. After Tesla, he went to Apple and spent nearly a decade working there on projects we can only imagine. I asked him directly if he worked on the famous Apple Car project that everyone has heard about. His exact response was this: "I cannot confirm or deny that I worked on the Apple Car." So make of that what you will, but that answer alone tells you something pretty interesting about him. What struck me most about Tim was something he said about working at companies of very different sizes. He said, "You experience what it is like to work somewhere with no money, some money, and tons of money. And no matter which one it is," he told me, "building things is still genuinely hard every time." That stuck with me because it removes any excuse that Aptera's struggles are simply about being underfunded. Even Apple, with unlimited resources, still finds tooling up for production to be a difficult and complex challenge. One of the biggest specific problems Tim talked about was the challenge of finding the right suppliers. If you go to a major Tier 1 supplier and say you need 100 parts, they laugh. These big suppliers are not interested in talking to you until you are ordering 50,000 parts minimum. Some of them will not even take your call until the number is closer to 100,000. So for low-volume production, Aptera has to go to smaller suppliers who are willing to work with them. And those smaller suppliers charge significantly more because they are working with much smaller quantities and less efficiency. Tim gave a specific example that really painted the picture clearly for me while we were talking. He said they are sometimes paying $5 for a part that should realistically only cost 25 cents. That is a 20 times markup simply because they cannot yet order at the volume that drives prices down. But here is the encouraging part: once volume increases, those bill of materials costs drop dramatically and fast. Getting to higher volume is the goal, and once they get there, the economics change completely in their favor. The challenge right now is surviving long enough and raising enough money to actually reach that volume threshold. They are going to have to change suppliers multiple times throughout this process as their volumes grow over time. And every supplier change brings its own set of challenges with specs, lead times, and quality control issues. On top of all that, unexpected problems always show up during development no matter how well you plan. When you have money, you can absorb those surprises and just throw resources at the problem immediately. But when every dollar matters, each unexpected issue is expensive in both time and energy and morale. You have to be more careful, more deliberate, and that caution naturally slows things down a little bit. But despite all of this, Tim Dine exudes a quiet and deep competence that is genuinely reassuring. After talking to him, I walked away feeling like this process is in very capable and experienced hands. I really wanted to get him on camera, but he is not someone who likes being filmed at all. He was not awkward about it at all. He just genuinely prefers to work away from any spotlight. He told me he just wants to do his job well and let the results speak for themselves. And honestly, I respect that more than I can put into words after spending time around him. Now let me give you a comparison that actually helped me reframe my thinking about Aptera's timeline completely. I have a friend who works for a biotech company that has been developing a single drug for years. That company has been around for almost 15 years and has still not made a single dollar in revenue. For 15 full years, they have been running entirely on investor money while doing research and clinical trials. They have burned through hundreds of millions of dollars developing this drug, and still are not done yet. And according to them, they are very close to the finish line, but they have been saying that for a while. Now think about that for a second, and then think about what Aptera is trying to accomplish here. Building a car is every bit as complex as developing a new drug, just in completely different ways. Both industries are heavily regulated, both require exhaustive testing, and both involve life or death stakes for real people. A faulty drug can kill someone, and an unsafe vehicle can kill someone just as quickly and tragically. Getting these things right is not optional, and rushing them is genuinely not a responsible thing to do. So when people ask why this is taking so long, I want them to think about that biotech company. 15 years, no revenue, hundreds of millions spent, and that is considered a normal development timeline in that world. Aptera is not behind schedule for a company doing something this difficult for the first time at this scale. They are scrappy, they are resourceful, and they are doing it with far less money than anyone expected. When I walked through that facility, I counted roughly 20 to 25 people actively working on things. Nobody was sitting around, nobody looked lost, and nobody seemed like they were just waiting for something to happen. The pace was not frantic, but it was deliberate and purposeful in a way that is hard to describe. Every person I observed was doing something meaningful the entire time I was walking through that space. Whether it was checking software, routing wiring harnesses, logging data, or prepping components for the next stage. And one moment that really stuck with me was learning about a team member named JC and her role. She handles the low-voltage systems, helped design the assembly line layout, and stayed late naming every station. She was having fun doing it, and that kind of ownership and pride does not happen at unhappy companies. Good energy is impossible to fake when you are actually standing in the room with the people creating it. And I felt genuinely good energy in that building from the moment I walked in until I left. Now I want to be transparent with you about something more personal, which is my position with Aptera stock. When their stock was trading around $10 per share, I chose not to buy any more of it. At that price, their market cap was approaching $1 billion, and that number did not make sense to me. I looked at where they were in development, and I thought there is no way this is worth $1 billion. So I held off, and I did not add to my position during that period of high valuation. I did buy in much earlier, not really as an investment thesis, but more as a way to show support. I put in an amount of money that I was prepared to lose entirely, without it affecting my real life. I am not going to miss a meal, miss a mortgage payment, or lose any sleep over that investment. But here is what changed after this visit. Their stock is now sitting around $1.50 per share. That brings their total market capitalization down to somewhere around $36 to $40 million right now. And at that number, sitting in that building, having seen what I saw, I bought more stock. I want to be very clear though, I am not a professional investor, and my track record is genuinely terrible. Most companies I have invested in have done poorly, and I have a habit of buying and selling at exactly the wrong times. So please do not take anything I say about the stock as investment advice, because it absolutely is not. Follow my investment decisions at your own risk, because history says I am probably going to get it wrong. But personally, at $36 million, after seeing that team and that facility, it felt like fair value to me. Now let me shift gears and talk about the actual car, because people always want to know about that. The Artemis I drove felt like a completely normal car to me, which honestly was the biggest surprise. I was not expecting it to feel that settled and composed given where they are in development right now. It drove like something that has been thought through carefully and refined over many iterations of real testing. I will go deeper into the driving experience and the ergonomics in a completely separate video coming soon. But I do want to mention a few things about the build quality that stood out to me noticeably. The parts on this validation vehicle are not 3D printed, and that distinction matters more than people realize. These are real production parts, and the quality difference compared to earlier 3D printed versions is immediately obvious. They may not be from the absolute final supplier, and some specs could change slightly down the road. But looking at those parts with my own eyes, they looked and felt like genuine production quality components throughout. The dashboard area uses hard plastic, which is functional and clean but not what you would call luxurious. It reminded me more of a Toyota Corolla in terms of material feel rather than a premium luxury brand. But that is completely fine, because Aptera was never trying to be a luxury car in the first place. This is a utilitarian vehicle designed to do something that no other production vehicle has ever done before. And within that context, the build quality felt entirely appropriate and honestly more solid than I expected it to be. The UI on the screen works great, and that was something a lot of people in the community were wondering about. It is clean, it is responsive, and it works the way you would want and expect it to function. The cabin air filter also got a lot of questions from the community, and the answer is wonderfully simple. You open the hood and it is right there, completely easy to access without any tools or hassle. That kind of thoughtful engineering shows up in small details, and those small details add up to a lot. Oh, and then there is Hermes, the track prototype that Tim Dine and the team have been testing hard. Apparently, they have been pushing that thing around corners at 80 miles per hour, and it is an absolute blast. Everyone who has driven it says it is an incredible amount of fun at speed on a real track. The Artemis I drove was deliberately tuned down because nobody wanted a YouTube creator crashing a validation vehicle, obviously. But even in that detuned state, it still felt composed, balanced, and genuinely enjoyable on the road. So putting all of this together, here is where I honestly land after everything I saw and heard. Aptera is real. The team is real. The progress is real. And the parts are real and accounted for. Are there challenges ahead? Absolutely. Funding will need to happen again before low-volume production can begin. Suppliers will need to change, processes will need to be refined, and unexpected problems will continue to show up. But none of that is unusual. All of that is just what building a new vehicle company actually looks like. What I saw was a lean, scrappy, deeply committed team running as efficiently as their resources will allow. And the people at the top of this process, people like Tim Dine, have done this before at scale. They know what they are doing, they know the road ahead, and they are not pretending otherwise at all. That is the most honest and complete picture I can give you from my January 2026 factory visit.